60 years ago, a woman named Jean-Claude was returning to Paris from what was a disastrous honeymoon, flushed with the realization that she never should have married this guy. When he left the apartment the next morning to go to his work, she called two people, Christo, the artist that she would spend the rest of her life with, and a locksmith. When her husband returned that evening, finding his key defunct, he pounded on the door demanding an explanation. From the other side, Jean-Claude firmly and resolutely declared, "Your key does not fit my lock." And I love that story. I think it's charming and romantic, but what makes it important, what makes it great, is the metaphor of that lock. What that lock meant to those people in that moment. You have the husband coming home to exert his control over the lock and thus over Jean-Claude herself. Locks are all about control. Then you have her rebelling and dissenting against that control. Locks are powerful tools in the hands of dissidents. And at its most basic level, she's just separating her private world from the public world. And locks do divide us from one another. But then you have Christo, the young artist, observing all of this, the man who did hold the key to her lock, that most private and powerful totem freely given by the woman who loved him. Locks bind us together. Locks have as many facets as diamonds, but these are the four aspects I want to talk about today: control, dissent, division, and binding. Control. This is a comb pick, a series of metal teeth set into a blank key. A pin tumbler lock. The red driver pins are blocking the plug from turning. They're sitting between the plug and the topmost portion, what we call the Bible. When a blank key is inserted into the lock, the blue key pins now sit between the plug and the Bible. The lock still can't open, but if the Bible is tall enough, those teeth can just shove everything out of the way, and the lock will turn freely as though the real key were there. Now, this is a well-known problem and one that's adjusted for in almost every major manufacturer of locks. It's been known about forever. But in East Germany, the Stasi implemented this flaw into every lock designed in or imported into the country. In one fell swoop, they subverted the personal security of every citizen of East Germany. They could walk in quietly, quickly, freely, an act of control over the entire populace. But dissent. In communist Poland, they tried something similar. Rather than work on the design side, they just said, any lock that you buy, you have to register the key with your local authorities. That way, if we need to get into your home unannounced, we can just grab the key and wander in. So the Sezam company developed a lock that did follow the letter of the law. It was a pin tumbler lock, it took a normal pin tumbler key, but it diverged from the spirit in that when that officer would arrive at your door, he'd find that the key didn't throw a bolt, it turned 4 dials in a combination that he did not know. This small act of dissident engineering didn't give those people a lot. We talk a lot about determined attackers in my industry, and there are few more determined attackers than governments. They will get in. But what that lock gave those people was time and noise. So they knew what was happening, and they had a little time to react to what was happening. And honestly, that little bit goes a long way. Now, binding. Locks do bind us to one another. And to the uninitiated, the number of rituals around the world that take a lock and use it as an act of binding us to our community, to our lovers, to our gods, would make you wonder what their original purpose was. In China, there's a tradition that when a child is born, the family collects a little bit of money from 100 friends and neighbors. That money is then put into the production of 100 family lock, a handmade lock by a local locksmith. The small investment from all of the members of the community invests them in the life of the child, and the lock, which is worn around the neck of the child, literally binds that child to life itself. In Iran, not long ago, there were religious worshipers who would pierce their torsos and pass the shackle of a padlock through it, locking it closed as tangible evidence of their connection to their God. And all over the world, and this is one of my favorites, and something that I would love to see us do here, are love locks. Where a couple on their first date, their anniversary, often as part of wedding ceremonies, will take a lock, inscribe their names on it, and shackle it to some permanent and public institution and destroy the key. I don't think that I need to explain the beautiful symbolism of that. But division too, they do divide us from one another. And before I get too far into this, I want to make one fact incredibly clear. I can open your lock. I can open your lock, yours. The balcony doesn't protect you. I can open any of your locks. My fastest times in the field are under 30 seconds for most normal door locks. My fastest time in competition was 2 seconds. I can open your lock, and whether by wit or by force, other people can open it too. So I want you to come with me on a thought experiment for a second. In front of you is a door. It's closed and it's locked. Why is it closed? Why is it locked? It's not yours. What's behind it? Who has separated out this part of the world for themselves or their family? But here's the thing, you're going to go through that door. This closed, locked door, you will go through it. How did you even find out it was locked? Did you try the handle? Feel the knob not giving way in your palm? Whether you pick it, kick it, whatever, you will be going through. At the moment that you decide to breach this private space, what do you feel? Are you excited? Are you nervous? Are you ashamed? Do you want to announce yourself? Do you try to slip in quietly? I don't know how you should feel, but I know that you should feel. When you come upon a locked door, when you come upon your own locked door, I know that you should feel. And it's those feelings that drive the story that I told at the top with Jean-Claude and Christo. Now, a good story, like a good joke, loses a little something if you spend 9 minutes explaining it. But I can't help myself. When it comes to locks, I feel like I need to explain it to everyone. And it's not because I think I found some incredible calling. It's a much baser human instinct. I don't want to be alone. And when I walk through the world, I see locks everywhere. And in those locks, I see the beautiful, tense story of how we've all learned to live together in an ever smaller world. And I would like all of you to see those stories as well. Thank you very much.